Are you one of those unlucky people who has really cold hands, cold fingers, cold toes, struggles in the cold weather with chilblains, sort of bruising, or your fingers go white sometimes and then they really hurt when they warm up again? This is a very common problem, and there is more than one reason why it could be happening. So I'm going to talk about a few of them, but I also want to talk at the end about what I did to fix mine, because my issue was something that most people have not heard about and isn't that commonly diagnosed, although I think it is a problem that is very common. So welcome to SHAPEFIXER. I'm Andrew. It's getting towards the end of winter where I am in Spain. It's early March. It's still quite cold, and I've had a bit of a miserable winter with really painful fingers and incredibly painful toes, sometimes so cold I struggle to walk, even though I'm wearing socks and snow boots. And I've got some photos. I'm just going to stick a couple of photos in here, right? So here is a picture of my fingers. This isn't particularly bad, but it's the only picture I've got. It's bad enough that you can see the discoloration in my fingers. And I would say the temperature around there was probably between 15 and 20 degrees Celsius. It's not that cold. It's kind of below room temperature, but already my fingers are going purple. Here's a picture of my ear. Now, weirdly, it's my right ear, and it was always my right ear. It was never my left ear, so go figure. The tip of my nose would go blue as well, and worst of all, my toes. Here is a picture of my feet. Well, 1 foot. That is in my bedroom in the morning. So it's really not that cold. I live in a house with heating, and it's a sort of below room temperature, but not that bad. So once I got my shoes and socks on and I got outside, it was absolutely dreadful. Okay. The common things that most people even know about, but we absolutely must touch on, because the way I solved mine might not be what your issue is. I would be very surprised if it isn't part of the issue, but you may have things that I don't have. You may have, for example, a very high sugar diet, and so you have high blood sugar or high blood sugar spikes. Or if you're very overweight and you are insulin resistant, certainly if you have type 2 diabetes, if you are obese, if you have low blood pressure, these are all things that can affect your circulation, restrict your circulation. The blood doesn't get into your extremities, and it's the blood that in the extremities that keeps them warm. So they get cold. Okay, so you need to improve your circulation. If you're a smoker, you probably have impaired circulation, and you're more likely to get cold hands and cold feet in the cold weather. Or if you have some level of coronary vascular disease, you have plaquing in your arteries, in your blood vessels, calcium buildup, and that again will be because of a high sugar diet or a high carbohydrate diet. So you need to be on a ketogenic diet, low sugar, so that you don't build up obstructions in your blood vessels that are going to impair your circulation and lead you to having really cold hands and feet. If you drink a lot of alcohol, it's going to affect your circulation, and so is low electrolyte. So if your salt levels are wrong, if you are deficient, for example, in magnesium. So here's a link down below here to a video I did on electrolytes. Go and have a look at that. You can tell by the symptoms which electrolyte you're low in, or you can just take a general electrolyte supplement and make sure also that you put enough salt on your food. Salt has been demonized. We try to avoid salt and we end up deficient in sodium, and that affects both our heart rate and our circulation. So the problem could be that the blood is not circulating properly because there's an issue with your heart and your blood vessels and the way the blood gets around. But that might not be the only problem. It's certainly not my problem. I'm a healthy weight. I don't eat sugar. I get a lot of exercise. I have a strong heart. And yet I've been getting incredibly cold fingers and toes. Now, cold extremities, or an inability to regulate the temperature in your extremities, is one of the symptoms of a slightly depressed production of thyroid hormone. So your thyroid gland, which sits in your neck, which produces hormones that do a number of things, if there's for any reason your thyroid gland is not producing enough thyroid hormone, one of the side effects is this problem with temperature regulation in your extremities. So now you sense the cold air on your skin, and immediately the blood vessels contract. They collapse on themselves and the blood doesn't go through anymore. And it's got nothing to do with how strong your heart is or anything like that. It's your nervous system thing that should be regulated by thyroid hormone and isn't, because you are slightly deficient in thyroid hormone. Now, if you have a really bad deficiency in thyroid hormone, you'll have a lot of symptoms. You'll have a depressed heart rate, you'll have a lot of fatigue. You may even develop a goiter because your thyroid gland swells up because it's desperate to try and make more thyroid hormone. And by then you'll be at the doctor and you will be diagnosed with a thyroid deficiency and probably put on medication. You'll be told you have Hashimoto's disease and you have to take extra hormone injections for the rest of your life, and you will be something that you think you have to live with. Not so fast. Not so fast. Firstly, if you do have Hashimoto's disease, that is an autoimmune disease, and your immune system is attacking your thyroid, and for that reason your thyroid is not able to produce the thyroid hormones that it's supposed to be producing. So you need to tackle the autoimmune issue. Now, what's interesting is when your thyroid is low, there's another gland in your brain called the pituitary gland that releases a hormone called TSH. And TSH rises in your blood and tells your thyroid to produce more thyroid hormone. So if you are deficient in thyroid hormone, you would expect to see high TSH because your brain is trying to tell your thyroid, hey, come on, wake up, you need to be making more thyroid hormone. If the TSH is up and your thyroid is still low, it means your thyroid is not, for some reason, responding to this elevated TSH. But that doesn't mean it's your thyroid gland that doesn't work. It could be, in which case maybe you've got Hashimoto's. But 4 out of 5 people that exhibit this hypothyroidism, their thyroid gland is actually fine. They just don't have the raw materials that they need to be able to build the thyroid hormone. And the most important nutrient that you need to be able to build sufficient thyroid hormone to not have this temperature control problem in your extremities is iodine, or iodine if you're American. Okay, iodine is essential for proper cellular function in every single animal on this planet, whether you're a snail or a rabbit or a human, which I'm hoping most of the people listening to me are humans. We need iodine. Where do we get it? We get it in our food. Where does it come from? The soil. So the plants you eat absorb iodine from the soil. The animals you eat get it from the plants that they eat. That's where it comes from. It recycles through the earth, it ends up in the sea, it then goes up in the sea spray and up in the rain and comes back again and replenishes the soil. That's a cycle, the iodine cycle. That's quite natural. What's not natural is the way we use our soil and the way we produce our food. So we have turned relatively fertile soil into a factory for producing massive amounts of plants. The agriculture is huge. 2 crops a year, 3 crops a year, not once a year, which would be seasonal, 2 or 3 times a year, turning over that same soil, plants that are bigger, stronger, more robust than natural plants because we've crossbred them and genetically modified them over decades, and they suck huge amounts of iodine out of the soil. It doesn't get replenished because the replenishment process is still natural. It's slow. So gradually, the levels of iodine in the soil have decreased. Now, there are other things that are also deficient in our soil. And of course, farmers understand this. So they put fertilizers into the soil and compost, and they feed the soil so that they can continue to grow masses of crops. But what they put in the soil is selective. They put in what the plants need to be able to grow quickly and get big. That's it. The plants don't need iodine. So they don't spend money on iodine to put it back in the soil. What for? So we are, most of us, to some level, deficient in iodine. Now, you might not be clinically deficient. You won't have a goiter. You don't have Hashimoto's disease. You might not have all the symptoms of a chronic iodine deficiency, but you might have really cold fingers and toes. And that might not be a circulation problem. That might just be an iodine problem. I started taking iodine, and within 10 days, my hands were nice and pink, and I could go out in the cold wearing sandals at 7 o'clock in the morning to let my dogs out into the garden and walk outside in 6 degrees Celsius, that is. Please don't ask me what that is Fahrenheit. It's cold. It's not freezing. It's cold. It's probably like 42, I think, maybe, Fahrenheit, with no problem. Absolutely no problem. It felt cold. My hands felt cold because the air was cold, but they didn't go blue, and I didn't appear to have any circulation problem because I've been taking an iodine supplement for like 10 days. It really is no big deal. Now, the recommended daily allowance for iodine in the West, in America, is between 150 and 200 micrograms, depending on how old you are, how big you are, whether you're pregnant or not. Okay, so that varies, but it's in that ballpark. That is the absolute minimum that you need to not grow a goiter and exhibit all the symptoms of Hashimoto's disease. That's not a maximum. That is an absolute minimum to keep you vaguely functioning. People on a high seafood diet, like people on a traditional Japanese diet, are probably taking 10 milligrams, and that's on average. So some of them will be even more than that. That is multiple times more than our recommended daily allowance. And it doesn't do them any harm. They just don't have any of these problems. If you have more iodine than you need and your body is functioning properly, you will pee it out. So it's no problem. So get yourself an iodine supplement. Okay, I got this one off Amazon. This is Lugol 5%. I put 4 to 5 drops. It's got a dropper. I put 4 to 5 drops of this in a glass of water, well, actually a glass of weak juice, just for the taste, of lemon juice, every day. And I've been doing it for about 2 weeks, but after 9 days or so, boom, temperature problem solved. I couldn't wait to tell my father-in-law this, because he has this. He has chilblains, and he's always wearing gloves, and he was always struggling with his fingers. And he was here the other day, and I said, I need to tell you about this. He said, no, I don't want to hear it. I don't have the problem anymore. I said, how did you not have the problem? He says, I don't know. It's gone away. So I thought, well, that's funny, because he's been complaining about this for years. And then my wife tells me, she got him, we're trying to get his diet right, and we're trying to get him to eat healthy, and we've convinced him to start eating more sardines, and he's now having a can of sardines every day. And guess where you get iodine from? Seafood. Boom. Iodine problem solved. So you don't have to go and take a supplement. You can just add more seafood to your diet, eat sardines, eat shellfish every day. But this, at least you know how much you get. You know you're going to get enough. Do it initially, but pick up the habit of making sure you get enough seafood so that you get enough iodine. Okay, here's another quick point. Somebody might tell you, probably a doctor, that you have Raynaud's disease or Raynaud's syndrome or Raynaud's condition. That is not a diagnosis of anything. That's a bit like telling the patient he or she has a headache. Okay, you know that. Raynaud's syndrome is a lack of circulation in your fingers and toes that makes them blue or white and makes your blood vessels close down, and very often nobody knows why. And I see that the most common treatment for Raynaud's disease, Raynaud's syndrome, is to avoid the cold. Do me a favor. None of that tells you what's actually wrong or why. And you will be able to find by Googling on the internet that Raynaud's disease very often can be addressed by taking extra iodine. So Raynaud's disease is a red herring. It's not a disease. There's no such thing as Raynaud's disease. It is just a name given to the condition of having your fingers and toes suffer from bad temperature control. This has been an absolute life changer for me. And the funny thing is, I was taking iodine because I realized it's deficient in the soil and it has so many other functions, and so many people do recommend an iodine supplement. So I thought I'll just give it a try. And I hadn't actually made the connection that it could be the issue with my fingers and my toes. So maybe this can help you solve your problem if you are suffering from fingers and toes that look like mine did in those photos. Thank you very much for listening to this. Please share this video with anybody in your family or anybody you know who suffers from this, because it's really unpleasant. 4 out of 5 people with cold fingers and toes are iodine deficient. Just a word of warning, if you are producing too much thyroid, so you have a different problem, like you've been diagnosed with Graves' disease, which is a thyroid gland that is also bigger and producing too much thyroid hormone, then there's no point taking an iodine supplement because you're going to make it worse. Okay, so you're on some sort of drug to lower your thyroid hormone. An iodine supplement is not for you. So if you're not sure, go and speak to your doctor. But if you're fine otherwise, this is a perfectly acceptable thing to do. And if you're not comfortable with it, as I said, just go and eat a lot of seafood. Right, please subscribe to our channel. We share as many interesting things as we can come up with, and send me ideas for other topics you would love me to talk about. We try to keep it simple. I try not to go too deep into the science and use too much terminology, but I will put links to a lot of my videos, to studies, to books, to papers, to articles, and to medical videos where this kind of thing is explained in more detail. Thank you again.